What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. As you can see from our nice little logo at the top, Brian, this is March. It's March Madness time. We didn't get to have it last year because of the shutdown. This year is going to be a little different, but we get it. We get a tournament. We got conference tournaments throughout the weekend and all last week. It was a lot of fun. And today, we're gonna run. So we're gonna cover each region in four different podcasts, so you can easier to consume whatever. This is gonna be the South region episode. So this is the Baylor, Ohio State. But before we dive into that, Brian, how are you doing? Are you ready to talk some South region and some college basketball?
Dude, yesterday was like the second coming of Christmas over the last couple of months. I mean, 2 years of anticipation for people like us. I take vacation for the first weekend of the NCAA tournament every single year. So last year was like a wasted vacation for me. So I am beyond ecstatic to get this thing going.
Yeah. For those that you don't know, the schedule is a little different this year. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday instead of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They kind of move some stuff around. For me, the work from home lifestyle is going to be perfect for this. I am actually not taking any time off, but that's okay. I'm going to be able to see all the games. I'm going to be able to bet on all the games, which is the most important. Today, we're talking South region. So let me throw up the odds. We'll go through some of our favorite teams and kind of how this division or these regions got seeded. So there is the South region. Let me turn this off. Baylor is your favorite. Plus 115 to reach the Final Four or come out of this region, 6-1 to win the championship. Kind of work your way down. Brian, initial, kind of jump into the South region. Is there a team or two that catch your eye? You think could make some noise? You think are likely to come out? Obviously, we'll go through some of our specifics. Favorite to win the region, a favorite team to bet on, all that good stuff. But just a general overall, is there a team you're looking at, a team you're excited about, a team you think could make some noise?
I mean, I'm kind of jumping on the wagon here, but Arkansas is one of those teams who, they like to get up and down the court. And with Eric Musselman down there, we saw what he was able to do in the Mountain West Conference. Now he's playing with a lot better talent in Fayetteville. I think Arkansas, who, as you can tell they're actually the fourth best odds out of this region with Purdue ahead of them, which I think is kind of more predicated on the success of the Big Ten as a whole, not necessarily how good Purdue is. So I think Arkansas is kind of a sleeper out of there. But for me, I find it interesting how Ohio State is kind of being slept on in this region. They lost to Illinois in a game that they took to overtime. They had every opportunity to win that game. If it wasn't for the Superman type effort of Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn down the stretch there, I think Ohio State is Big Ten champion, and we're likely talking about them as a possible national title contender more so than we are the other Big Ten teams.
Well, and it's really funny too, because obviously you want to be playing your best basketball when March happens, and being able to kind of jump into March, into the tournament with your best players playing at their best. Ohio State scuffled down the stretch, but you know what they did? They figured it out. They played really well in the Big Ten tournament. They got some stuff together. Obviously, not having Isaiah Livers was huge for Michigan, and was kind of the difference maker from Ohio State, advancing. My concern with them, as somebody who watched a lot of Ohio State basketball, is they're like, when they get leads, they kind of just get really complacent and really love letting teams kind of crawl back into it, and then kind of scramble at the end, which I think actually helped them in the Big Ten tournament, making that comeback against Illinois yesterday. But yeah, they couple games against Purdue, and then I forget, it was the one right before or after, but they were up big, and then all of a sudden it was like a 2-point game with 2 minutes to go, and then Purdue went to overtime, and then I forget who they played before that.
I think that might have been in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so they love to let teams hang around and in the second half just kind of come back. And so maybe that makes them a little more tested. But if they let some of these good teams hang around and push them at the end, I think they're going to end up kind of like they did against Illinois and on the wrong side of the scoreboard. So I do have some concerns, but I also think, to your point, that they're probably not getting the respect they do deserve as a number 2 seed in this region, especially in a region where, like, outside of Baylor, I don't know that I love any of these teams. I think Arkansas is interesting. Obviously, Villanova is coming in with a huge, red flags and injuries and issues, and North Carolina is sort of okay, and like I don't, I'm looking at kind of the region as a whole, and like I don't know that I love any of these teams. Is there any other team, like especially say, beyond Villanova, that you think could make some noise and make things interesting for an Ohio State or for a Baylor?
I mean, I'm going to go back to Lubbock down there with Texas Tech with Chris Beard at the helm and Matt McClung, who he is a game changer for that team. I mean, when he was at Georgetown, McClung would take over games and he would have spurts where he would just be a baller. But
it's so weird with him because he was I knew him as the YouTube dunker and like the Instagram dunker, and like that was kind of his thing. But like he's become so much more than that. He's a well-rounded player. He makes a big difference, and Chris Beard has the experience. Obviously, coached Texas Tech to the championship 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
So he knows how to get his team playing the best basketball. I think they're, of the teams that are kind of further down, I think they make a ton of sense.
I will say, I will point out though that if Texas Tech falters in the first round to Utah State, don't sleep on those Aggies, because with Namitas Keita down low, a true 7-footer who completely blocks out the sun, and then they have a ton of experience down there for that Utah State team. They could upset some brackets and potentially get to the Sweet 16 as an 11.
I mean, you've watched a lot more, obviously. You watch a lot of San Diego State. You watch a lot of Mountain West basketball. But yeah, I don't know about them. Like I don't have the same confidence that I've had in previous years with them. And I feel like if one or two things kind of goes wrong, or Keita gets in some foul trouble, things could go really, really poorly for them. I'm looking at like Sweet 16 odds and Elite 8 odds over on DraftKings. I use FanDuel Sportsbook for all the championship and the Final Four odds. The odds are all over the place. So if you like a team, look around at the options you have available to you and see if there's, you can find a better number. But I'm looking like to make the Final Four, Ohio State, almost 5-1. I like that.
Well, if you look at Texas Tech, they're plus 140 to make the Sweet 16, and they can get past Utah State. I think they match up pretty well against kind of a fast and sloppy Arkansas team.
Is there any matchups you're worried about? Causing some issues and causing some problems. Like obviously, yeah, like you said, you like Utah State. That could be interesting for Texas Tech. Ohio State has to beat Oral Roberts. Then they play the winner of Florida Va-Tech, and then they play probably Texas Tech. Based on kind of where we're at, Texas Tech or Arkansas. Do you think like Florida or Virginia Tech especially could cause some issues and knock Ohio State out early in that and kind of void them from getting the Sweet 16?
That's, to me, that's laughable. I honestly feel like Ohio State's path to the Elite Eight is a little bit easier than Baylor's, because whoever comes out of that North Carolina Wisconsin game is going to be a difficult matchup for Baylor, because both of those teams, or Wisconsin for sure, they want to slow the pace to a snail's pace, and Baylor, I mean, they kind of thrive on creating turnovers and getting up and down the court. But if Wisconsin is able to keep that game close, that could be an issue. And then the size and length of North Carolina may cause some issues for Baylor, with Vital down low as really their only big dude. And they got some bench guys that are taller, but if the length of North Carolina is able to get in the faces of these 3-point shooters for Baylor, I think there is the potential of an upset there. But For me, I don't really see either Baylor or Ohio State faltering. I do see that this is kind of a chalky region.
The one thing I will say is I have big questions about Scott Drew as a coach, just kind of in general, and making adjustments. And I could see Baylor having an issue where they're not hitting their threes in the first half and they don't make the right adjustments and things just go horribly for them. But there's definitely a scenario where they play a Wisconsin and then they play a Purdue, two very similar type teams, and they are able to kind of have a game plan for that. Are we discounting Villanova too much by kind of just writing them off because of all the injuries and whatnot?
I do think that it's a little bit premature to kind of say. I mean, as soon as this bracket dropped, it was instantaneous. Everyone was all over the 12-5 upset, Winthrop over Villanova. And as good as Winthrop is, I mean, they're one of the top teams in college basketball in terms of shooting the three, where Villanova really struggles on the defensive side of the ball. That being said, though, Winthrop has not played the kind of offense and or coaching that they're going to see when they go up against this Wildcats with James Robinson Earl, co-Big East Player of the Year. I just think that Villanova is just too talented in other areas that Winthrop will keep. I think this game will be close early on, and then eventually Villanova will be able to get past them. But I think a team that's sleepy, like you said, is the Purdue team, because of their size, will give issues to teams. And I think out of this region, my favorite bet of this region for the first round games is Purdue to cover the line against North Texas.
Yeah. So a couple things. Villanova is a 6.5-point favorite against Winthrop right now. Villanova is getting 57% of the bets, but only 41% of the money, which I think is kind of interesting. But the fact that a 12-5 is even that close is pretty interesting, and I think speaks to what you were talking about. And in terms of Purdue, 49% of the bets, 64% of the money. I always like to look at the money early in the process, knowing that the public, the general public is going to roll up to the casino on Thursday or Friday to make their bets. They're not getting involved this early. So if a good amount of money is coming in on the bets, on a team early, that's a team. I'm going to circle them. I'm going to write them down. I'm going to keep an eye on that to kind of see where I can find value and where I can find opportunities to strike. Because obviously there's people that are really dedicated to watching college basketball and have these elaborate systems and they have plans. So I like to go, let me see if I can kind of keep an eye on that. I'm a very numbers oriented bettor when it comes to college basketball. Okay, so I have a few questions for you. Let's rip through them. So who wins the region?
For me, I'm going to go with the Scarlet and Gray. Honestly, I've seen them play so many times this year. I watch a ton of Big Ten basketball, being a Michigan fan, but I also have been watching the Big 12, and I do think that these teams match up fairly well. And the emergence of Seth Towns down the stretch for Ohio State, and hopefully the addition of Kyle Young back to this lineup, will just kind of bolster what they want to do. And then Dwayne Washington has been a beast in this last week, and we've seen it numerous times where guys get hot at the right moment, right before the tournament starts, and it carries over into these stretch run, and you just see them, pick it up for the tournament.
Yeah, I have some questions about Ohio State, and especially in their late game sets and some of the stuff they kind of have the ability to kind of fall apart. But I think they are the best team in this region. I think playing so many competitive games with Illinois, with Michigan, with even Wisconsin and Purdue, and just the other Big Ten teams. I know Big 12 has been solid too all year long, and Baylor's ran through some tough teams, but I think at the end of the day, Chris Holtmann will be able to make enough moves and outcoach Scott Drew if that's kind of how the two teams shake out. And I think they have the ability to come out of the South. Who's going to be your favorite team to bet on in this region? Is there going to be a team that you're like, I think not only can they win maybe their first round game, but I'm going to be able to find value in getting to the Sweet 16 or potentially even the Elite Eight?
I think for me, I'm going to stick in the Big Ten, and that's going to be this Purdue team, who I think, like I said, my favorite bet in this region for the first round to cover the 7.5 against North Texas because of their size. And then I think that that same size will be able to kind of disrupt what Villanova does with James Robinson Earl on the other side, with the emergence of I believe his name is Ivy for Purdue. Like Purdue is one of those teams with Matt Painter. Every year they kind of start off slow because they're trying to establish more guys into the rotation. And we got that whole year now against that Big Ten competition. They're now ready. You know, they're going to get Stojakovic better. And he hasn't been shooting very well. Or Stefanovic. The last 2 games, I think Stefanovic made like 2 threes. He was like 2 for 12. So if they can get him rolling, Purdue's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I like Texas Tech. I think they could make some noise against Utah State, and then I think assuming Arkansas gets through, I think Arkansas is the favorite in that game, and Texas Tech can get a nice number. Look at that Texas Tech money line heading into the Sweet 16. Like I said, I like Ohio State to come out of the bracket, but if Texas Tech wins that game against Ohio State, I think they definitely have the goods to come out, and I really want to see that. I think North Carolina gets by Wisconsin. I think it's probably an interesting game just because Wisconsin's going to slow it down. North Carolina's going to get up and down. But I think North Carolina has the horses to beat Baylor and knock them out. And that kind of leads into my favorite team to fade, which is the Baylor Bears. I think they have a talented team, but I think at the end of the day, Scott Drew's not going to be able to do enough. And I think they're going to be a team that a lot of people are like, well, there goes my bracket when they get knocked out against either North Carolina or Texas Tech. What say you? Who's going to be the team you're going to fade in this region?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, I guess it would be Baylor in a sense, just because I don't see them coming out of the region into the Final Four, because although I see them getting to the Sweet 16, I do think that they will be beaten by whether it's Ohio State or Texas Tech. I just think that the inefficiencies shown by Scott Drew throughout his career, as he's taken so many talented teams here at Baylor into the tournament and completely disappointed. So I just have zero trust in him as a coach when it comes down to the nitty gritty. And that is one reason why I cannot trust him.
The one thing I will say, and I like to lean on Ken Palm's numbers. Baylor is one of their 4 number ones. Their 4 top teams were all the 1 seeds. They have Baylor as the 4th 1 seed. But they have Houston. Oh, wait, no, not Houston. I always get Houston, Texas Tech confused. I don't know why. It's the red. It's the Texas. I don't know. But they have Ohio State as a 2, right there with Baylor. So I think they could knock them out. Purdue is their 13th ranked seed, and Villanova, obviously with injuries, but is their 12th. So they have some interesting teams in that division that region that could easily knock them out.
I think too, of note, before we get off the Ken Pom rating, there is Baylor is 44th in his rating on defense. And one of the trends that we've seen over the last few years is that the national champion has almost always finished the regular season in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive adjusted rating, according to Ken Pom. And that's something that Baylor does not fit into. So be careful when you're filling out your bracket looking at them.
I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a great call right there. And fading the 1 seed is never an easy proposition, but I think for this region, maybe not in the first game, I think they can get by Hartford, and based upon the betting lines, I think they will. I mean, people are the money is coming in on them, even despite being a 26-point favorite. Okay, Brian Twining, this was really fun. Like I mentioned, we are going to talk the Midwest. We are going to talk the East and the West. So make sure you checked all those out. They'll all be in our feed, as well as we're going to be setting up a bracket for you to join to compete against us. I will put links in all of the video descriptions. Go check that out. Hit subscribe, mash that thumbs up, do all that good stuff. It really does do a lot to help us out. We'll also be back talking NASCAR this week. We'll be talking all the good stuff. So for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time.